Thank you. Well, welcome to my talk. I'm going to talk about what does Starlette really do for FastAPI. A bit about myself before I start. I am considered the most experienced, I guess. Like FastAPI has a page where they add the people that are more experienced and stuff, and I am kind of the first one on that page. Mainly because I've helped a lot on the GitHub issues and answering questions in related stuff. I'm also, hold on, this is not working. Yeah, do I have internet? Yeah. So I'm also a maintainer of Unicorn and Starlette. Unicorn is a web server implementation that runs applications that looks like FastAPI. And Starlette is a web framework that is kind of provide the web capabilities to FastAPI. And recently, so Pydantic, the package, the creator, Samuel Colvin, he got seed investment, I don't know, and he created a company with the same name. It's called Pydantic Services, I think. And I am working with them. So Pydantic is another dependency of FastAPI. And yeah, that's pretty much what I do, what I am. I'm a Brazilian. I'm half Italian, so that's why I was speaking Italian here. And yeah, so what's FastAPI? Is there anyone here who haven't used FastAPI? Okay. Well, anyway, no, I mean, the talk's going to be comparing FastAPI with Starlette, which is one of the dependencies. So I'm going to basically show what's from FastAPI itself and what's from Starlette. So, I mean, previous knowledge is not required. You're just going to see the features of FastAPI that come from Starlette. So FastAPI is a web framework for building APIs. It makes strong use of Python type hints. And Starlette is a lightweight ASCII framework. So ASCII is an interface that defines how to communicate between the web application, the web server, and the client. And it's also, you have the / toolkit because it's kind of building blocks. So you can use part of Starlette. You don't need to use necessarily the whole framework to make use of the framework. Yeah, and it's ideal to build async web service in Python. So yeah, as I said, this is going to be a talk comparing FastAPI and Starlette. Kind of not comparing, but showing you what comes from Starlette because it doesn't receive much of the visibility since most of people use FastAPI directly. Yeah, so the talk, the format of the talk, don't look much of the code yet, but the format of the talk is going to be, I'm going to show you a feature of FastAPI. And I expect you to answer if it comes from FastAPI or Starlette. And please answer, so it makes more dynamic. You know. Anyway, so background tasks. It's a feature. I'm going to explain the feature as well. So background tasks is a feature where you can kind of add a task to run after the response runs sent back. So it specifically only runs if the response is successful. So if for any reason you have a negative response, I don't know, 400 something, you're not going to run the background task. So in this example, we can see that I'm just creating a FastAPI application from 1 to 3. Then a mock, well, a fake the background task, which will be write notification. And you have the endpoint, which is defined from line 10, 11. Well, 10 and 13, which on line 12, I'm just adding this task that is write notification, okay? So again, I'm gonna run this. I'm gonna receive a request from like send notification / depending on the email. And what's gonna happen is that I'm gonna add a background task that's gonna run after I send the message notification sent in the background. So is this feature from FastAPI or Starlette? So Did you get a good angle or? I don't know. Anyway, so this is from Starlette. Actually, FastAPI only re-imports it. So if you look at the FastAPI/background tasks, you are going to see only the re-import. So from Starlette.background task import background tasks. And sorry. Yeah, so this is only from Starlette. The FastAPI doesn't change anything related to background tasks. The only thing is, when you write, so when you write on line 11, you see background tasks, and then you have the column with background task. What FastAPI does is introspect this signature, and then it adds a background tasks object to the function that you see there. And that's what FastAPI provides to you. And this would be how you do the exactly same thing that you saw on the previous slide, but with pure Starlette. So as you can see, there is not much, well, besides the number of imports that you have at the beginning, you see on line 13 actually, you create the background tasks by yourself. And what's important is that on line 16, I am adding the background tasks. As you see, background receive tasks. So, so this is actually what FastAPI is doing underneath, and it's not that much different, I guess. It's just that the way you work with Starlette is a bit different. FastAPI is more decorator-oriented. You have a single decorator that defines the endpoint, and Starlette you usually define the roots, and then you add it at the end, as you see on line 21. So you're going to see similar applications as this one in the whole talk. And let's go to the next feature. Start thinking about if it's from FastAPI or Starlette. So the TestClient. TestClient is a way, well, it's a capability that FastAPI has that makes you easier to test your application. I'm not sure. Yeah, never mind. I know, I forgot what I was going to say. But anyway, so the TestClient is a very good feature, and it's just to test your application. There's not much more than that. Like as you see here, we have our application, like our endpoint on line 7 to 9, and then on line 12 we just define our TestClient, and on line 15 to 12, I'm just making sure that the status code and the JSON has the exactly same as defined on my endpoint. So is this from Starlette or FastAPI? Yeah, it is from Starlette. FastAPI also doesn't do anything with the TestClient, but in this case, it's literally anything. On the background tasks, you could see the signature being introspected and stuff. On the TestClient, there is no change, like nothing being manipulated or something. It's just pure Starlette. And as you see on the code in Starlette itself, it's like the test code, like the test function is exactly the same as you'd have with FastAPI. So as you see on line 8 to 12, very simple. It's very similar to FastAPI. It's just that we don't use the decorator there. Oh yeah, so this is just a small tip. It's nothing much. Well, at the time that I wrote those slides, I was in one of my previous companies, and actually a lot of tests that I saw were only checking the status code of the response. So what I could see is that the body was actually not the expected one. So, for example, as you can see here, I'm only testing the status code, right? But this is actually not testing the endpoint. Can someone see why? No need to answer. Just, can you see it? Raise your hand. OK, good. Yeah, so I'm going to explain anyway. So the thing is, I'm not testing what you see on line 11. On line 11, if the user ID is 0, I'm supposed to send user not found. But actually, this test is not getting it's not getting that line of code. And the reason is that actually, it's not explaining this slide, it's explaining the next one. But anyway, so right now I've added the line 21, which is just user not found, which will match what we have on line 11. And when I add this, I am sure that I'm not testing this endpoint because, as you can see on line, no line, on differing items, the result that arrived there was detail not found, which means that I didn't get the right endpoint, because if you see on the previous slide, or here, my endpoint is users and not user, as you see on line 19. So I just made a typo, and unless you have 100% coverage or you care about that, you will not find out about this. So just adding the body would save you a bit of time. OK, so let's go to another feature, WebSockets. So on line 6 to 11, to 10, I'm just getting the WebSocket object, and then on line 8, I'm accepting the connection. I'm saying everything's cool. And then on line 9, I'm just sending a text, and then I'm closing the, it's just really not that useful for a WebSocket, but it's just for the example here. And is this from Starlette or FastAPI? Yeah, it's from Starlette. Yeah. So on this case, also, FastAPI doesn't do much. OK, it does some small stuff with WebSocket, I guess, but not that much. There is some manipulation on that object, but nothing to mention. Like, it's not big changes. As you can see, because this is the point, this is per Starlette, and it's exactly the same implementation as you can see here. Like from line 7 to 10, you'd have the same as 6 to 9, like even the number of lines. So it's really pure Starlette. And the thing about this is that how we document this, because as you might know, maybe the ones that don't know about FastAPI don't know, but you have automatic documentation on FastAPI, but not for WebSockets, because it uses OpenAPI. And OpenAPI is a spec that defines HTTP stuff, RESTful stuff. And the thing is, oh, my bookmark is there. Anyway, I didn't notice. So yeah, so it defines only HTTP stuff, and on WebSockets it doesn't define anything. So nothing that is WebSockets related goes to this OpenAPI JSON. And the thing is, well, you might find out that if you are only building WebSockets, you're not going to have anything on the Swagger. As you can see, this is the Swagger. It's the beautiful interface, which is not beautiful on this slide because you don't have anything, but it's supposed to be. And this is another spec. Well, this is the presentation of the other spec. It's called Async API, which it's more focused on event-driven. So you'd have a way to write, like to show, to document automatically the WebSockets. The thing is, FastAPI doesn't have any, it doesn't support Async API. I have created a package some time ago, but it's not completed. So if you want to start on open source, this is a good opportunity. I didn't dedicate much time on it. It's just, what basically happens is that you need to have the models, the Pydantic models, and then you'd create the Async API JSON, as we are doing with OpenAPI JSON on FastAPI. Yeah, I just didn't finish it. So if someone wants to help, you can see on cludex/FastAPI Async API. Yep. So yeah, so let's go. Another feature. So as I said, FastAPI makes use of, or generates an OpenAPI JSON. And is the OpenAPI JSON a feature from Starlette or from FastAPI? Actually, it's from both. So yeah, actually it's from both, but you should not use the Starlette one. It's a bit different. So actually, Starlette does generate an OpenAPI JSON, but in a different way. So I was expecting another slide, but anyway. So let me go here. So FastAPI, Starlette has this schema generator, And this schema generator is a feature that you probably don't know, because also like as a maintainer, I didn't find out long time ago, I guess a year ago, I don't know. And it's a way to generate the OpenAPI JSON, but writing the doc strings. So as you see on, I didn't put the lines. Anyway, but on dev home, you'll see the doc string, and it uses that information to generate the OpenAPI JSON. I think similar packages on Flask. I don't know in Django if they have something, but on Flask I know there is Flask. I don't know, but there is Flask Swagger or something. Anyway, there is a similar way to do this. So Starlette kind of copied this. You shouldn't use it because it's not very complete, and I don't think many people use it, and we are thinking about deprecating it. So just don't use it. But it is possible to generate it from Starlette. Yep. Actually, is there someone who uses Starlette without FastAPI here? Okay. You use it? You're kidding? Huh? Okay, nice. Yeah, I mean, when I started helping on Starlette, I actually debugged all the applications that I saw on the issues on FastAPI. And then I noticed that, I mean, FastAPI takes a bit of time to be up to date with Starlette, so then I started learning Starlette. You know? But it took almost 6 months, a year to write Starlette, even when I was maintaining Starlette. Just as a curiosity. So yeah, so FastAPI, it generates automatically. So you have, this is the most simple application that you can create. Not returning, it's returning null. And it's just an example, and you see on your left, that you have the OpenAPI JSON being generated. Yeah, so overall, it's just OpenAPI support. It's more about the FastAPI, since it automatically gets the types and it creates the OpenAPI JSON. Middleware. So just explaining the code here. So on line 6 to 8, we have the simplest endpoint that you can have. And from line 11 to 15, we have a middleware. In this case, this middleware, what's happening is it's calling the endpoint on line 13. And on line 14, after the response is, we got the response back, we are just adding a custom header, which is the custom, and the value of that is example. Okay. And okay, great. So is this from, like, this capability, is it from FastAPI or Starlette? Is it from FastAPI or Starlette? So I just always wanted to do that. So it's actually from Starlette. Even the decorator is actually from Starlette as well. So FastAPI doesn't have anything by itself here. It doesn't do anything. Zero. So, yep. And this would be the way to do it on, well, this is actually the recommended way to do it on Starlette. So as you see on line 9 to 13, we are doing the same thing as the decorator, but the thing is, it's like the recommended, well, it's not without double quotes, it's the recommended way. Well, to be precise, we are kind of not motivating people to use the base HTTP middleware. For historical reasons, there were a lot of bugs. So if you use an old version and you use it for some time already, you probably face those, and I'm sorry. But during the last year or last year and a half, we solved most of them. I guess the only problem that people really complain and people will face at the beginning is that sometimes you have you consume the request body and then it keeps hanging. Someone faced this? Can you raise your hand? Not that much. I expected more people. So you will not face any bugs. It's great. So yeah. So yeah, this is a way to write from line 9 to 13 the middleware in Starlette. Yeah, if you have the opportunity, I would recommend you to read a section in the Starlette documentation that's called Pure ASCII Middleware. That is how we motivate people to create middlewares, because the base HTTP middleware kind of make it easier for the user to create middlewares, but it's a bit slower and yeah, just read about pure Async middleware. You would learn a lot about Async in general, the protocol that, the interface that FastAPI is based on, and Starlette as well. Yep. So, oh, okay. So this is a feature that most of people don't know because I don't think it's mentioned on the documentation of FastAPI. But some people, at some point, you will have to use this. If you are on line 8, you have the path, right? So if you want to retrieve a path, like with something with a slash, you're going to use this. So the path converter. So, and as you can see here, what we're doing is, so the path converter is actually those, how do you call this in English? Curly braces, thank you. The curly braces, and then you specify with column which type you are going to get. So on line 8, you have the path, which is a path. Maybe I should have added another name, right? Yeah, anyway. So path, it's a path. And on line 9, we're just adding the type. And then FastAPI will convert it to a path. And on line 13, is number is going to be an integer. So is this from Starlette? Well, is this from Starlette or FastAPI? It's from Starlette. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, this is from Starlette. That's why it's not even mentioned in the documentation of FastAPI. Maybe we should add a line or something, but it's just a feature that you'll need in case of path. Otherwise, you'd probably not need this. Also, actually, there is another example. Like, who uses MongoDB here? OK, great. You know the object ID thing? So usually, you receive it there. And then, like, you put like ID and then object ID something. And then you want it to be an object ID after. Actually, I don't remember how you do that. So never mind, ignore me. But if you remember about path converter when you are looking at that, it's going to help. OK, so and this is how you do in Starlette. So as you can see, you have the path converters are on line 19 and 20. And on line 7 and 12, I have the definitions of my two endpoints. And on Starlette, you just receive one object, which is the request. And on line 8 and 13, I am getting the path and the number. They are analogous, and like the endpoints are analogous. Yeah, this is the Starlette way. So yeah, I mentioned most of the features here that are from Starlette and not from FastAPI itself. So you might be thinking, so why should I use FastAPI? So I'm going to mention the reasons why you should still use it. Well, first one, autocomplete. So Starlette, actually, you don't have autocompletion, even if it gives a lot of capabilities to FastAPI. It's just you don't have that pleasant feeling of having everything, the options on your IDE and stuff. The data validation provided by Pydantic. Didn't mention much Pydantic. Sorry, boss. But I'm going to talk about Pydantic a bit in the next slide. So, and the API documentation out of the box, which is, we talked about the OpenAPI JSON. And with that, FastAPI generates both the Swagger and the redoc, which I actually didn't mention, but are ways to present the RESTful, blah, blah, blah. You look for Swagger and redoc. It's going to be better. And because of its strongly typed and stuff, you have less errors and bugs. Also because the data validation. So that's what's pretty cool. And also, I mentioned it last, the async Python. But actually, I have a question. Who uses FastAPI without async? And who uses with async? OK. I mean, I was expecting more without, but pretty happy about that. OK, so it leverages async Python as well. Good. And just some words about Pydantic. Hold on. So I don't know if you know, but so as I said, Pydantic is one of the dependencies of FastAPI. FastAPI has two dependencies, Starlette and Pydantic. Right now, I'm the maintainer of both. Yes. And Pydantic, we are about to reach V2. So we already make, I think, 3 or 4 alpha releases. And today, we're going to release, or it was already released on my talk, the beta. So I recommend for people that are using only Pydantic, not Pydantic with FastAPI in some projects, maybe you have, to try the V2, because on this beta phase, it's an opportunity for us to fix stuff. Also, FastAPI is about, well, it has 97% of the tests passing with Pydantic V2, so I'd expect a compatible version of FastAPI soon, in the next days. So if you can, please test it. And the other thing is, I didn't mention, but Pydantic was only a package, and then they raised some funding, and then they created a company, which I was hired. And we are actually trying to talk to some people. So if you are a data engineer or an engineer that is processing large amounts of the data, we are interested on talking to you. So please reach out. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcelo. Really insightful talk. And we have quite a few questions on Slido. And the first one is probably related to Pydantic. Does Starlette has a clean way of validating the body schema?
Sorry,
does Starlette has a clean, yes, Starlette has.
Oh. No, I mean...
use Pydantic, maybe?
you can use... You mean like what FastAPI does, right?
Yes, I guess that's...
Okay. Yeah, so... I mean, that also gives you a freedom to use something different than Pydantic. Sorry again. No, but I mean, yeah, so basically you have the freedom to choose whatever validation framework you want for in that case, right? I recommend Pydantic, by the way.
And given the notoriety of FastAPI that FastAPI got, and how much features actually use from Starlette, how people don't recognize the tribute that FastAPI has to Starlette. How does it feel to be a Starlette maintainer and people giving credit to FastAPI?
No, that's not right. Yeah, I understand that Starlette has a bit far less popularity and many people don't know about it. But I don't feel like I am on that situation. I got a nice job. I am pretty happy. FastAPI, it's not me, right? It's you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, and also FastAPI sponsors Encode, the organization that created Youthcore and Starlette. So I don't feel like that at all. I'm also a friend of Sebastian, so really it's not like that.
Okay. And as can FastAPI reference this? Sorry, can reference the features more clearly? The
what?
Okay. Can FastAPI reference more clearly? Oh.
I repeat the question. Say the question, I repeat, and then, or you can talk here if you want.
Yeah, but
yeah, go ahead.
Speak here. So no.
Great. Can FastAPI reference the docs of these Starlette dependencies more explicitly? Didn't get the question, I'm going to repeat it. Can FastAPI reference the docs of these Starlette dependencies more explicitly? In Italiano.
I guess they mean that if FastAPI can document more clearly which features of Starlette they actually use in the documentation, so people are more aware of the...
I guess, but no, I mean, I don't see any advantage of doing that. For the user, it's just, you see?
Yeah, it would be easier.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna talk.
If you're debugging, it would be definitely easier.
Yeah, okay.
I can promise you.
Great. I'm gonna talk with Sebastian about that then. Yeah, Mark?
Yes.
Okay.
And why the two projects being so close and separation of documentation overhead of FastAPI keeping up with Starlette? So how much work requires for FastAPI to keep up with Starlette changes? And would it make sense to merge the two projects?
No, Starlette is a dependency of other projects, even if they are less known as FastAPI, so it wouldn't make sense to merge them. Yeah, what's the beginning of the question? I forgot.
Yeah, just to...
Yeah, the keep up thing.
Yes.
Yeah, so we are trying to not add any feature on Starlette. We are trying to fix bugs only. So it's not that hard to keep up. The last change that was a bit hard was the change of requests to HTTPX on the TestClient. How many people were unsatisfied with that change? Amazing. Yeah. So yeah, not difficult to keep up with Starlette changes right now.
Okay. Thank you very much, Marcelo. Thank you.